All right. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today for the No Kid Hungry Summer Webinar Series. My name is Robin Hernandez, and I am the Senior Program Manager for the Center for Best Practices team at No Kid Hungry. Today, our topic is Amplifying Impact, Advocacy Strategies for Rural Non-Congregate Programs. Next slide, please. A few housekeeping items before we begin. The slide deck will be shared with you via email after the webinar, along with the recording. I encourage you to use the chat box throughout the webinar to engage with other attendees. And the webinar will conclude with a Q&A with our speakers. So please do submit your questions throughout the webinar as they occur to you, using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will work to get your questions answered by the end of the call if time permits. We are also committed to making our webinars accessible and inclusive. Closed captioning is available, and you can turn that on at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Next slide. And now we have a quick message from Christina Unicode, who is a communications consultant with the School Nutrition Foundation, who's going to share about how you can earn CEUs today. Christina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We're really thrilled that you're on today's webinar, and I'm certainly looking forward to hearing insights and experience with summer non-congregate meals. So just so you know, SNA is providing CEUs for attending this webinar. It's part of our ongoing series of webinars with No Kid Hungry. So at the end of today's presentation, I'm going to share a link that will take you to the training zone. I'm going to share that directly in the chat, and this will pop you directly over to the training zone where you can fill out that evaluation, or you can access this webinar in the training zone in the on-demand course titled Amplifying Impact, Advocacy Strategies for Rural Non-Congregate Programs. Just make sure that you're signed in with your schoolnutrition.org credentials and that your profile is up to date. And once your evaluation is complete, that certificate is going to unlock. So again, just at the end of the webinar, we'll drop that into the chat. I think it's also going to be on the slide and in the follow-up email that you all receive. So yeah, just really looking forward to today's webinar. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll turn it back over to the No Kid Hungry team.
Thank you so much, Christina, and thank you again for providing us the opportunity to give CEUs for this webinar. We're very excited, so thank you. So moving on to our agenda today, we have an action-packed call with guest speakers who will be speaking on various strategies for summer meals and rural non-congregate program advocacy. You're going to hear ideas on how you can act in collaboration at the state agency level and with local elected officials to strengthen your programs and generate support. After some Q&A time, we will share resources and final CEU information before closing. Next slide. Okay, at this time, we would like to take a brief audience poll to see what experiences you all have had when it comes to program advocacy. So I'm going to attempt to, thank you so much, Emmanuel, for launching that poll. So hopefully you all can see the poll. The question is, what forms of summer meal advocacy have you engaged in? Select all that apply. So maybe some of you have engaged elected officials or building community partnerships to support the program or encouraging other sponsors to serve summer meals, participating in local summer meals collaborative, providing education to help others understand the need for the program, or none of the above yet. So I'll give you all a moment to select your, make your choices. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share with you the results. So it looks like most of you have worked in building community partnerships in some way, also provided education to help others. And some have encouraged other sponsors, and a few of you have engaged elected officials, and some are just getting started. So thank you for sharing your experience. And we're going to go ahead and go to the next slide. So some of you may have heard of the 3 C's of advocacy, which is collaborate, connect, and communicate. All 3 are critical pillars to building relationships, expanding your influence, and impacting key decision makers who can hopefully support the growth and implementation of summer meal programs for children. You're going to hear our speakers today share some of the ways that they've used some of these key concepts to build momentum and advocate for summer meal programs in their areas. Next slide. And at this time, we'd like to remind you that all of our speakers today represent their own experience with summer meal and specifically non-congregate programs in their states and localities. Certain program models and implementation methods discussed may be restricted in some states or approved on a case-by-case basis at the discretion of the state agency. So always check with your local state agency before implementing any new meal service models or implementation methods. Next slide. And now a brief introduction of our speakers joining us today. We have Heather Senecal, who's the Director of Learning and Evaluation at the United Way of the Greater Capital Region. We have Petra Colindres, the Director of SFSP and Farm to CMP at the Washington Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. And Erin Goldstein, who is the Senior Manager for Local Government Relations here at Share Our Strength. Next slide. So we're going to start off with Heather Senecal, who facilitates the Summer Meals Collaborative at a 25 plus agency platform transforming summer meal provision for children and teens by boosting access, quality, and activities. She is also a founding member of the Schenectady County Food Council and was active in the NYS Healthy School Meals for All and New York Can End Child Poverty Coalitions. She co-authored an upcoming paper on the 10-year impact of summer meals collaborative model. Heather's also a returning speaker from our Summer Nutrition Summit that we held in DC this last January, where she presented on the topic of program advocacy. So we are so grateful to have her return to share again and to expand even further on her work. So thank you and welcome, Heather.
Thanks so much, Robin, and hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here and share out how we're operating in upstate New York. So as Robin mentioned, the Summer Meals Collaborative is a collective impact coalition that is covering 8 counties in upstate New York. And we are united under one vision, creating, and for us, that means making the capital region the best place to be a kid in the summer. And I'm really excited this afternoon to share out, the 3 kind of advocacy focus or lanes that we took last summer. So starting up a rural non-congregate working group, which was an offshoot of our main collaborative, starting up an activities working group, and then our Summer Meals Ambassadors program. Next slide, please. So really briefly, what do we mean by collective impact and how do we approach this work? So for us in our collaborative, we are a network of community members and organizations and small CBOs, school districts. We also have some local government entities in our collaborative and some national level organizations that help with advocacy, such as No Kid Hungry. And we're all kind of coming together to understand, how can we advance this goal of making sure that every child has access to this phenomenal program, breaking down those barriers, and how can we really transform it into a program that all kids can access without trouble and, without, having to go through all these barriers. So for us in the Summer Meals Collaborative, we're really focused on supporting each other, the collaborative members, and our shared vision. So, how does all of our work advance, making our community the best place to be a kid in the summer? And, because we cover so many communities and we have a variety of sponsors in our collaborative, it's really supporting each sponsor and how they're delivering the meals in the meal programs in the summertime, and bringing in other partners to support in that effort, such as, activity partners and other types of ways to create that experience for kids in the summer. We're also really thinking about this is not for us an efficiency management issue. This is a transformative management. This is transformative change for us. So we came to this realization several years ago that we are operating in an incredibly efficient fashion, but we're still not able to reach all the kids in our community. And so it really got us thinking about we can't get more efficient. We're already operating really well. So we need to call more folks into this work with us. We need to broaden our collaborative. We need to bring more folks into, how are we delivering this program beyond just the meal portion of the program, and creating that transformative change for kids and families in our community. And then lastly, how can we, as I mentioned, like bring in more partners, especially partners who don't necessarily think of themselves as, nutrition partners. So they care deeply about, creating engaging experiences for kids and truly believe in this program, but wouldn't necessarily consider themselves, someone who would traditionally undertake a summer meals program. Next slide, please. So we're really proud of creating and sustaining this our rural non-congregate working group. This idea came out of our general collaborative monthly meeting. Several of our sponsors, members in our collaborative, were really looking for like how to expand into rural non-congregate. They were many of them had been operating as congregate meal sponsors for many years and saw the opportunity, especially in the communities they're serving, and how can they participate in the rural non-congregate program? But they had a lot of questions because it was still kind of fairly new for us in the collaborative last summer, and so we started this working group so that we could have those very specific conversations outside of our general meeting time. In our general collaborative or our monthly collaborative meetings, we're really talking about big picture, what's going on in the community. People are sharing out, here's how I'm thinking about my program this summer. Here's some challenges I'm facing. We kind of creative brainstorm together and really think through how can we support each other that way. So these working groups really became an area for us to explore a topical issue in more depth. And it was an invitation. Anyone who wanted to join could, but for us in the Rural Non-Congregate Working Group, we're really diving into how this program operates and what do we need to know to get it going for last summer. And within the working group, we had a variety of different sponsors, returning sponsors and new sponsors. We also had a variety of different implementation models, which was really helpful because, especially for the newer sponsors, being able to listen to other sponsors and hear through like, oh, this is how I'm doing it. Here are some of the tools and the materials that I use to set up my program. So we had a lot of information sharing. We also had a lot of questions that came out of the working groups. And so it was really helpful to us that we had partners in the working group who were able to kind of help us meet with our state agency that oversees summer meals. So helping us like have those conversations and understanding, some of the limitations that might occur. So it was very helpful for us to have a variety of folks in the working group who are able to provide that information or at least connect us to our state agency. I'm really proud of all the work our partners did last summer, but especially, last summer was the first summer in which we really expanded into rural non-congregate. And it's exciting to share that 44% of all the meals that were served by the collaborative were served in our rural communities and kids participating in rural non-congregate. And that of all of the RNC sites in New York State, 19% of them were run by our collaborative or supported by our collaborative. So we started really strong, and I'm really excited to see what we can do this summer, and how we can continue to expand. Next slide, please. We also were really intentional about, how can we make sure that kids who are participating in a rural non-congregate programs, how can they still be part of, this large region-wide effort of making the greater capital region the best place to be a kid in the summer? And how do we include them, especially if they're participating at home? And one of the ways in which we did this, or we thought about this, was creating this summer-long activity theme that we could use across all of our sites, congregate, non-congregate, and a way to like bring kids together, but bring them together apart. And so what we did was we borrowed the literacy theme from last summer, which was Color Our World, and we created an 8-week-long program. Each week we took a different color of the rainbow, and we created these fun sheets that kids could, explore different activities in art and science and reading, and nutrition education was included in that. And then, we posted each week we posted this up on our websites and socials. And then, of course, it was at all of our summer meal sites and for our rural non-congregate kids, making sure that they had access to this as well. And we encouraged kids to, create with us and then share what they created with us, so that at the end of the summer we could create a rainbow of all the fun and exciting art and activities that kids did this summer with us. So this was a way for us to bring in our kids, in our rural communities, and also raise awareness of the program. So because this was out on our socials, a lot of kids were interacting with it, and families didn't necessarily know too much about summer meals. So it was a way for us to connect with families around summer meals too, to say, like, there are sites in your community. Here's how you can get signed up. Here's how you can participate. And, again, we'd love to have you participate in our activities, in our activity theme for the summer too. So it was a great a way to kind of cross promote summer meals and summer fun in our communities, and reach a lot of kids that we normally we sometimes didn't have a chance to reach otherwise. So it was a great way to kind of provide some advocacy around summer meals and the importance of the program. Next slide, please. And then the third area of advocacy that we expanded into last summer was through the creation of the Summer Meals Ambassador Program. And I just wanted to shout out No Kid Hungry, because we borrowed this t-shirt idea from the 2024 Summer Nutrition Summit. We saw a photo of two folks with a t-shirt that said, "Ask me about summer meals." And we saw that and we're like, that's a phenomenal idea. And we ran with it. And through that, that was the beginning of the Summer Meals Ambassador Program for us. And so we thought, like, what if we created like a whole group of folks that were out there in the community helping us spread the word about summer meals, but weren't necessarily connected to, who weren't necessarily part of a sponsor organization, or, who cared deeply about this, but haven't yet gotten involved. How can we activate them and help, and they can help us spread the message? And it was really important for us that, we wanted to activate community members, because we knew that, in order for us to change the way that folks talk about summer meals, we also needed to change how we're talking about summer meals and who's talking about summer meals. And, it's a very different message when you're at the playground and a parent, and you're chatting with other parents and they're saying, like, I found this awesome program for kids this summer. They're at the park Monday through Friday. They serve lunch and they have great activities. Or, there's this great program for my kids that I go once a week. I pick up, breakfast and lunch for them. It's at the library. So it's actually a really great way to get the word out, and it's peer to peer, and we found it to be really powerful. More folks were like asking about the program, and more folks were taking interest in the program than we had seen in previous summers and in our traditional outreach messaging. So how does it work? And it was really easy to sign up as an ambassador. There's a form. You just kind of sign up and give us your general information. We ask the ambassadors to watch a very short 5-minute video, which basically runs through, like, what are summer meals and how do they operate in our community. And then we also made sure we had a lot of information in that video around summer EBT. And then after they watched that video, they were given a one-page info sheet that they could just download onto their phone or print out if they wanted to. And on that info sheet was pretty much all the information in the video with QR codes. So, if they're out and about at the playground and, they're wearing their t-shirt and someone's asking about, how do I find a site near me? They can pull up the QR code and they can show that to the community member to say, just scan this and, type in your address and you can find the closest site to you. They were also given a t-shirt, and we encouraged our ambassadors to wear their t-shirts everywhere, out and about at parks, and it was really easy for folks to do that. So I just want to leave you with a few thoughts on why a collaborative model and why it works well for us. And maybe you're already doing this in the community. I saw the poll results that 30% of you are doing this, and so feel free to add in your thoughts on why a collaborative model is important and it's a helpful model for summer meals implementation. But the one thing I just want to leave everyone with is that the realization that we came to several years ago, why are we doing this in a collaborative method and in a coalition model, is this idea that we don't each have to do everything. So the saying is like, how do you eat an elephant? Well, as a vegetarian, I was like, I don't want to eat an elephant, but what's a big thing that I would want to eat, or what's a big thing that's similar? So that's why we have the sequoia here. So like, it's a really big tree. It's a beautiful tree. It's really big. How would you eat a sequoia tree? Well, you'd eat it in small bites. And that's how we work in our collaborative. We all take on small bites, and we're all working towards that main vision of making the Greater Capital Region the best place to be a kid in the summer. And all of us can link our work to that, whether it's through the meals program, whether it's through advocacy, whether it's through the activities that we're doing, whether it's through the ambassador program. Everyone can link that work back to the vision. And it's the sense of community, and we're not alone. We're all alone in the work. We're all kind of doing this together, even in our separate communities. Next slide, please. And if you are curious about this model, and because I often get asked when I share about the collaborative, like, okay, well, how would I do something like this in my community? Um, I just wanted to list out a couple of, what are the recipes for success of a coalition model, and how would you get it started? And so, these are the elements, and anyone who's familiar with collective impact work, you'll recognize a lot of these strategies. But if this is an area that's really new to you, then here's your recipe for success. You really need to have a convener. That can be an individual, it could be an organization, it could be a group of folks, but a convener to bring people together, organizations together, to start that initial conversation around like how can we support this program in our communities, and who are all the folks that we need around the table to do that work. I think Summer Meals lends itself to this idea of a common vision. So it's really easy to kind of create that common vision together. And then, it's lastly, I think the last thing I want to leave everyone with is that, this is about building an ecosystem of partners. So again, you're not all doing this on your own. Not everyone has to do everything, but everyone's doing something. And I think that's, those mutually reinforcing activities, even if they're pretty different, but they're reinforcing your main vision. And then the last slide is just, to leave you with who we are. This is our Summer Meals Collaborative. And again, thank you for letting me share out how we're doing this work in upstate New York.
Thank you so much, Heather. That was amazing. You are truly doing some great work in New York, and you really, really help us to understand the benefit of working together in a collaborative. So thank you. Next on our agenda, we are going to hear from Petra Colindres, who is a registered dietitian with over a decade of experience in pediatric nutrition. Committed to equitable food access and strengthening child nutrition systems across the state, she supports communities through nutrition education and program development. Petra enjoys life with her spouse, 2 children, and 3 dogs. Petra is also a returning speaker from our Summer Nutrition Summit this year, who graciously agreed to come back and share more on this topic via our webinar. So thank you so much for joining us, Petra.
Well, thank you for having me. Excited to be talking about some of the advocacy and access that we try to do at the state level. So kind of coming off of Heather's conversations, the state role is slightly different. We all do know that rural communities do face unique barriers, but also we know that those rural communities and our sponsors, which is really who we directly work with on a more frequent basis, have a lot of unique barriers to actually implementing summer meals programming and the regulations. So we at the state level really take that seriously. And we know that we play a critical level or critical role in translating federal rules into program access and working on balancing that community need with the program integrity and appliance piece. We really do look at the kind of algorithm or equation, so to speak, that we know policy turns into practice. Practice is informed through partnerships, and ultimately it's our sponsors and communities that really create that overall access point to make sure that kids are fed over the summer, and we take that seriously. Again, too, we do know state leadership is essential to making these rural non-congregate communities a viable and scalable solution and not just a temporary option. So what we try to do is to lead coordination to expand the sustainable and community-driven solutions, as well as making sure that we're bridging the gap between policy to practice and supporting that guidance through our support. And we'll get into a little bit more of what that looks like. But again, to really, when we look at Washington, our goal is to balance program integrity because absolutely we need to do that as part of the requirements. But beyond that, make sure that we're having a sponsor and community sponsored approach and making sure that advocacy is advancing awareness, understanding, and support for the populations and issues that our program faces. Next slide, please.
And then we make sure they get the menu. On the back of the menus here is their, so this is kind of what they should be eating every day. And then the back actually has their storage instructions and safekeeping instructions so that they kind of know. We did the traditional congregate meals. That's something that was always done before I started working here 2 years ago. I feel like they're just not as successful as we're wanting them to be. So that's when we decided, and I talked with my superintendent on doing the non-congregate option in the meal boxes. And we were anticipating a 250 max showing up and went over 600 signed up, and we average 400, 450 that come and actually pick up their meals now on every pickup so far.
There are many kids, not just in Auburn, many kids statewide, nationwide, who are really struggling to get food. We can do something to fix that. We have the power and the choice to do that, and we think it's really important to take care of the students that we take care of 10 months out of the year. What's another 2 months? Like, let's take care of these kids year round and do the right thing.
The first year that we started, we did 952 lunches in the whole summer. We had 3 locations. Now we're doing 400 a day, about, and we've had as many as 26 locations.
We got to see that food counted and inventoried and then packaged and loaded up to go in one of our delivery vans. Then we do 6 or 7 stops at different sites throughout Auburn. The kids are really in a habit, like they know we're coming there this summer, and it's really kind of a cool thing to see that they're as excited about it as we are.
The whole idea within the program to reach more kids and to feed as many kids as possible. If a parent says no, they can't stay, or they say you can go get your lunch but you have to come right back home, or they're just afraid to be out, then they can take it home.
The summer meal program is important for a couple of reasons. I think one overlooked reason is that it really keeps the kids involved in their school and in their community. Like it's a constant in their lives. It really helps the parents. It's one less thing for a busy parent to do. They know that food's going to be taken care of for their kid. So in the future, we would like this to expand to areas in Auburn where we aren't servicing at the moment. Overall, just trying to reach as many students as we can.
I am so glad we got to share that video. And I was trying to cut it short, but there's so much to share. And I wanted to share that video because, especially when we're talking about advocacy, We're blessed in the state of Washington to have an amazing communications team, and a picture is worth 1,000 words, and we know videos and GIFs and these small reels nowadays even show more of that impact. And ultimately, at the end of the day, there's our sponsors doing that work, but we're there for our sponsors, talking with them. They ask us questions. How do we make this work? Will this work? Is this within federal regulation? And we really take that role seriously from the state perspective. And it really jumps right into this slide here is how do we turn policy to practice? So as you could imagine at the state level, we know that, we're kind of that intermediate position there, sorry, but where we take the federal guidance and we turn that into state practice. I won't go through all the bullet points there, but I'm sure you all have worked with state agencies and have had those conversations, know what that looks like. But sometimes an overlooked portion is that we also show that state experience and do, turn to that federal engagement. And we do elevate challenges. We do share successes and best practices. We do engage when there's some confusion around regulations or just, clarity from our sponsors and beyond. And then really looking at that data. So in our role, we're really constantly taking a broad federal guidance and turning it into something sponsors can actually use. And so whether, as mentioned, it is clarifying those expectations or creating tools that reduce confusion and risk, that's something that we take very seriously and try to continually bridge policy guidance into that real world practice. I think we can go, I was going to say too, that the two-way approach does help us support sponsors more effectively while also identifying issues early and improving implementation overall. Sorry, now you can go to the next slide. So from practice to partnership, so these are some of the ways that we have working with our sponsors and with others really learned, hey, this is what we need to really convene, support, engage, and really get more information to implement this program more successfully. So one of the things we have in the last 2 years, we just had our last opportunity to do that this year, is our summer summits, where we are able to convene sponsors and community partners and outside agencies to share strategies and really build regional connections. We do take that as an opportunity to also talk through some of our annual training needs. A lot of our annual training, actually all of our annual training is online, but it's kind of that extra step to, next step is like, if you understand the annual training, do you have any outside questions? We take those opportunities to engage with our sponsors and help them engage with other community members to potentially help advance their sites. We also do have at the state level a summer sponsors advisory boards where we do meet every 2 months typically, and where we create that forum for feedback to understand what sponsors are dealing with, what's their feedback, what's working, what's not, what's peer-to-peer collaboration, best practices, and really building on that to either elevate that across the state or elsewhere. Also, too, we really do try to do that sponsor engagement, especially right now, since right now is our time where we have our open applications. We work directly with sponsors during this time period to identify partnership opportunities that could potentially expand their communities to access for meals, while thinking about the compliance and the operational components that are needed for the program integrity. And I did mention a little bit about our farm to summer integration. As you can tell from my title, I do oversee some of the farm to initiatives across our programs. And so we really do try to see how can we make that not a secondary, but more integrated into our overall programming. So we do work with partnering with local food networks, connect sponsors with sourcing and community-based support, and actually have a defined specialist who helps with that connection to make that as easy as possible for our sponsors. And overall, one of our goals as it relates to child nutrition programs is how can we make sure we have that cross-program alignment to make sure that our efforts across child nutrition programs are as effective, efficient, and partner-driven as possible. And then lastly, turning that partnership to access. We do, as mentioned, we use that sponsor feedback and data to really strengthen and expand our program outreach. We do, and to identify where the gaps may exist within that. And we're not just connecting those people, we're learning what's actually working and where the gaps still exist. That feedback, combined with what we see in site reviews and program data, allows us to be much more targeted in how we expand access, especially in rural communities where there's ultimately so much need. And again, too, sponsors need so much need to actually implement these models. Ultimately, this helps us move beyond one-off approaches and really towards models that are both compliant and sustainable year over year. And so again, too, we really like to see that partnership turn into insights and coordination, and then ultimately expanded access and stronger models. And again, too, we love seeing our sponsors shine. And this is another visual of our sponsors really growing. They started the program, a rural non-congregate program last year, expanding on it and growing it this year. And that's what we love to see from the state level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Petra. That was amazing. And I think that video is a hit, and it really just goes to show uh, what a wonderful advocacy tool that can be, especially in helping folks understand just the incredible impact of this program. Thank you so much for the work you do in Washington and for sharing your experiences with us. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, wait, we're there already. Thank you very much, Emanuela. So next we have our final speaker. We're excited to have Aaron Goldstein with us, who serves as the Senior Manager of Local Government Relations at Share a Strength, where he utilizes his deep knowledge of government relations, policy, and movement building to develop and advance public policies to end hunger and poverty in the United States and abroad. Prior to joining Share Our Strength, Aaron led government relations at the Learning Disabilities Association of America and the American Association of Colleges for Teacher Education. Mr. Goldstein received his master's degree in public policy and public administration from Northwestern University and a bachelor's in political science from American University. Thank you so much for joining us, Aaron.
Thanks, Robin. Pleased to be with you all today. I'm thrilled and honored to be considered the staff lead for what's called our Mayor's Alliance to End Child Hunger. It's a coalition that Share a Strength created a little over 4 years ago. And really we saw the essential need that Share a Strength for many years has worked with individual mayors, but really not collectively. And so that was one of the rationales for creating our Mayor's Alliance. If we go to the next slide, please. And really the reason for this, for many of you know, you may work with your local mayors. You know, they are a great bully pulpit on a host of issues for whatever it might be. They can help amplify issues. They can draw media attention. They can just really collectively do a lot of work, both locally in their community, statewide, as well as federally. Just earlier this week, we actually just organized a little over 100 mayors who are calling on Congress to protect SNAP in the ongoing Farm Bill negotiations. So we've seen them come together in a bipartisan manner to support critical programs that are feeding kids across the country. And really, it's a way for us to also build out champions. We know many times mayors are individuals starting as mayor early in their political career, and they might move on to higher office if it's statewide or federal office. So hopefully we can cultivate them as champions for ending child hunger, regardless of what their role is. And really, it's built out as a nonpartisan organization to ensure that mayors can speak out on issues rather than on political issues. If you go to the next slide. And the Mayor's Alliance is set up in a way where we're structured, as I mentioned, as a nonpartisan structure. We're led by a chair and a vice chair. Mayor Daniel Rickenman from Columbia, South Carolina, is our current chair, and Mayor Leah Gaskins from Alexandria, Virginia, is our vice chair. And they really set the public face for the work of the Mayor's Alliance. Obviously, as mayors, they see the work on the front lines. Obviously, every community is a little bit different, but so many mayors have similar tools at their disposal to focus on ending child hunger. Go to the next slide. And really, as I mentioned, the Mayor's Alliance has existed for a little over 4 years. We started at about 50 mayors, which seems like a lifetime ago. We now have more than 600 mayors from all 50 states and DC representing the Mayor's Alliance. We have large, as you can see, we have mayors that represent cities of over 1 million people, many large metropolitan areas, but several hundred mayors that are from cities and communities that are fewer than 30,000 residents as well. And more than 100 of these mayors that we work with represent communities that are eligible for rural non-congregate. And so we know that while you might not think that mayors or large communities are part of the conversation, we serve and work with so many mayors that are 5,000 residents, smaller than that. I think we had one a few weeks ago that there were, I think, 125 residents in the community. And so, to us, it really shows that this issue hits home regardless of the zip code, regardless of where folks are. I'm really grateful for mayors coming together to help us end child hunger. Next slide, please. And really what the mayors have done a critical role. For those of you that were at the most recent Summer Nutrition Summit, I spoke with Mayor Gaskins and Mayor Rickeman, who are our leaders, about the role that they play and mayors can play in particularly in ending summer hunger. But mayors have been really critical across the country in fighting against summer hunger. We've seen mayors issue proclamations on summer meals programs to help raise awareness of all the various options for summer nutrition. We've seen mayors partner with summer meal sponsors to help ensure that providers and operators can gain access to public facilities, if that's a community center, a Parks and Rec facility, a public library. And so they've been really helpful in just building awareness. We've also seen, we know that summer nutrition programs work together to make sure, we want to make sure that mayors are coming together to ensure that constituents, their communities know about the suite of options that are available, if that's summer EBT, congregate or non-congregate, that children should have access to their choice of options to be able to ensure that children aren't going hungry in the summertime. We also believe that mayors are really uniquely positioned to lift up personal stories and lived experiences, as well as examples of how these programs are working well to ensure that kids aren't going hungry in the summer. Mayors can also use their quote unquote Rolodex to help make sure state policymakers, federal policymakers help understand why these programs are critical and how they're helping to benefit families and children across the country. We also have been working with mayors to help coordinate and align local advocacy efforts. Mayors, we call on mayors all the time to bring stakeholders together. That's one thing that mayors are really helpful for in just calling a meeting and getting a call from a local mayor saying, hey, come to City Hall, meet and talk to me about summer nutrition programs. They can bring public and private stakeholders together, school districts, community organizations, faith-based organizations, to make sure that those silos between sectors are broken down, and what mayors can do to help bring those folks together and make sure that those gaps are addressed. Next slide, please. One way that we are also encouraging the Mayor's Alliance members, we work with organizations like the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the National League of Cities, the National Association of Latino Elected Officials, and the National Association of Counties to work with all types of local elected officials to help get the word out. So we've recently put out an engagement toolkit specifically for mayors, but it's also applicable for county commissioners, school board members, for any kind of local elected to help make sure that children can access summer meals programs regardless of where they're at in the country. We've put together a summer meals proclamation template to make sure that communities are aware of where to find summer meal sites, as well as just how important summer meals programs are to local communities. For those proclamations obviously aren't binding, they're not law, but they're really just a way to draw attention and to make sure that folks know where to go. We all often use this as a way to draw media attention and to make sure that this is seen as a priority from across the country. Also, mayors have been really critical in helping, as I said, help open up new sites. In many communities, summer meal sites can work with elected officials to help gain access to public facilities. And one thing I'll just point out, this came up during the Summer Nutrition Summit, don't hesitate to reach out to your local elected official, if it's a mayor, city council member. They want to hear from you. They want to work with you on how to open more sites in your community. So they're very interested in hearing from the work. They're also very interested in seeing programs in action. So please don't hesitate to reach out to mayors and other local elected officials from your community to see a summer meal site in action. that is very powerful. That's obviously a really clear way to demonstrate to them why this program is important, how it's helping to make sure kids aren't going hungry. So really encourage you to invite a local elected to come to a site in your community. We also just encourage local elected officials to help amplify any of the tools that No Kid Hungry has put together, if that's our summer resource hub, as well as our outreach toolkit. There are most elected officials, especially at the local level, are seen as one of the most trusted levels of government. And so having them be able to be a messenger for ensuring that communities have access to non-congregate, summer EBT, and other nutrition programs. They can be putting out social media posts. They can be putting out flyers at public town hall events, putting out things in public rec centers, things like that. So they've been very helpful in that regard as well. Next slide. And last thing I'll just put to call to action to all of you. Welcome, obviously more the merrier in terms of members of the Mayor's Alliance. I mentioned we've grown to more than 600 members across the country, but we're always looking for more mayors. So if there is a mayor from your community that's a champion for these issues, if they've been to a site, they understand the importance of the issue, encourage you to encourage them to join the Mayor's Alliance. My caveat, my disclaimer there is we cannot have an individual that's not from Mayor's Alliance sign up for the Mayor's Alliance on behalf of the mayor. You must get consent from the mayor to sign themselves up. So feel free to reach out to the mayor directly, to anyone you might know on their staff, to make sure they're interested, and that we would hope that they would join our effort. So that is my last slide. So Robin, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you so much, Erin. That was wonderful, and thank you for really helping us understand how our local elected officials can really help these programs. At this time, I want to encourage everyone to, have any questions that you may have, to enter them into the Q&A box that's down at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see it, then click on the circle with the 3 dots in it that says more, and you'll have an option to enter questions in the Q&A box. We did have a couple of questions earlier. Somebody asked Heather about funding working groups, and asked about whether or not it was volunteer-based. Would you like to speak on that a little bit more? I saw you answered it in the chat.
Sure, happy to. So we at the coalition level, we don't have funding. We fundraise for it, and that helps us to pay for a lot of the things that, for example, wouldn't be covered by the reimbursement rate for summer meals. In terms of participation in the collaborative, it is voluntary, but the majority of folks who are in the collaborative are representing organizations that are part of this summer meals, summer nutrition space. So I'm not sure, I mean, I'm happy to expound on that, but, so we are fundraising for the coalition at the coalition level, and trying to increase that so that we can, fund more activities and, expand more out, help sites expand or help sponsors expand, that kind of stuff.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Heather. Also, we just got asked if we'll get a copy of this session sent, and yes, you will. All registrants of this webinar will receive the recording and the slide deck, along with links to all of the resources that were discussed today. Let's see. Doesn't look like there's too many other questions at the moment. Somebody asked about messaging for your program, about using the phrase summer meals for kids versus adults. This question was directed at Heather, but I know, Petra, you may have thoughts on it as well.
I may have missed the question. Do you mind repeating?
Certainly. It's, do you use the phrase summer meals for kids? Wonder if there could be objections if some people felt adults could participate. I know this is a common question that comes up.
Unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, these federal funds are really meant for kiddos 0 to 18. So it really is meant for children. So again, too, that's not to say that there could be other funding through the state level or other areas where adults could be fed, but that would not be appropriate for these funds.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and move along to share a few more resources and make sure we can get you the link for the CEUs. So first of all, some amazing resources we have for you. The Mayor's Alliance to End Hunger. There's a resource that can help you better understand that work, along with the website and the engagement toolkit for mayors. I highly recommend anybody who's involved in this work to download that toolkit and see how you can engage your local elected official. And then there's also a link for the School Nutrition Association Training Zone, which is where you'll visit to get your CEUs. Christina just threw that link in the chat, so you can go there now. And then we have oodles and oodles of resources at our No Kid Hungry Center for Best Practices page. So please make sure you visit there as well. Next slide. We have 3 more webinars remaining in our summer webinar series, so hopefully you already have them on your calendars. If you don't, then please make sure to sign up for them. Next webinar on May 13th is Pick Up to Porch, where we will dive into 3 different program models. You'll hear from sponsors who specialize in grab-and-go meals, in mobile meals, and then even a home delivery program. We also have Beyond the Flyer. Really excited for this session. It's going to be all about marketing your summer meals program, where we'll be doing a deep dive into our toolkit and having some of our social media experts help train you on some best practices for engaging in social media when promoting your summer meals. And finally, a home deliveries model session where you can get a deep dive on different types of home delivery programs and some of the work No Kid Hungry has been doing with partners in this area. Next slide. And then also, we have our summertime snack newsletter. This is a monthly newsletter. If you are not getting this newsletter, please make sure you subscribe. This is where you will get connected to all things summer meals related, whether it's upcoming webinars, new resources, what's in the news, and more. Next slide. All right, and at the conclusion of our webinar, we will have a 5-question survey, which will open in your browser window. Please do take the survey. It really helps us know how to craft content that is important and relevant to you. And then also make sure you check your email. You will be receiving all of the links as well as a link to get your CEUs at the SNA Training Zone. Next slide. And with that, we just want to thank you all for spending this hour with us in our summer webinar series, and a huge thank you to all of our wonderful panelists, Heather, Petra, and Aaron, who joined us today and shared their expertise. We hope you enjoyed this webinar and look forward to seeing you next time. Good afternoon, everyone.